I'd like to welcome everyone to our awards ceremony. And I'm going to cut right to the chase and bring up Assistant Chief Schubert, and he is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next on the agenda, we'll have the invocation by Chaplain Gillette, who is with the Zone 2 station.
Let us take a moment of silence to remember our brothers and sisters in law enforcement who made the ultimate sacrifice for their community. We ask that you be with their families, their friends, and their fellow officers. Gracious and ever-living God, we give you thanks for another day of life. We ask that you be with us today as we celebrate and give out awards to those who have made sacrifices to this community. We ask that you be with them. We ask that you be with their families who, because of their families, are able to give them support. Lord, you know all the difficulties that these men and women surmounted, and the courage and discipline and self-sacrifice that they used in order to gain these awards. All these things, dear God, we lift up to you by whatever name you've come to know, love, and serve you. Amen.
Now I'm going to call up Mayor William Peduto for some congratulatory remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Toller. It's appropriate that we're gathered here this week, Law Enforcement Officer Memorial Week. We recognize the sacrifice that officers have given not only to the city, but to cities all across this country. And we also recognize that in that service, there are sacrifices that are given every day, every week, every month. Those sacrifices are borne by those that wear the uniform. Those sacrifices are borne by those that love those who wear the uniform. And as the families of officers who are being awarded recognition today gather here, there's a level of gratitude to you as well. The thanks for sharing them with us. The thanks for sharing in helping to get them through days. Today we recognize the excellence within the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and other law enforcement agencies that we partner with. Today we recognize the independent and individual efforts that put this bureau toward the top. But today we also recognize the sacrifices that it takes to get us there. And for that, the people of Pittsburgh say thank you.
Next, we'll have remarks from Public Safety Director Wendell Hisrich.
Thank you, Sonia. Good afternoon. Today, we are here to recognize the outstanding achievement and overall excellence of some of Pittsburgh's law enforcement personnel. Your dedication to serving the great city is evident and clear. The achievement cannot go without proper accommodation. I thank your families and friends that continuously allow you to leave the comfort of your own home and support you day in and day out as you fulfill your duty to protect all who live, work, and visit the city of Pittsburgh. As we near the conclusion of Law Enforcement Memorial Week, and while we are here to applaud and celebrate the achievements of these outstanding men and women, we must also show gratitude and appreciation to the men and women who lost their lives in the line of duty serving this city and protecting us all from harm. Their exceptional service and honorable selflessness cannot be overlooked or understated. To all of you recognized today, congratulations. I wish for you all to continue to stay safe, and I wish you all the best as you continue to take great steps in your career of protecting the residents and visitors of the city of Pittsburgh. Thank you and congratulations.
And next, we will bring up Chief Cameron McLeay for reflections and remarks.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to keep my comments really brief today. This day is a day of celebration. It's not about anything I might have to say. There's nothing extra I could add that would add value to the words of wisdom already shared. This is about the accomplishments of the men and women of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. This is an outstanding police department. Families, you should be extremely proud of the quality of service, the dedication that your family members provide. Recently, over the last 12 months, we've gone through a very lengthy process to redefine for the men and women of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police what are our core shared values. And I'd like to share with you what those values are, because the men and women we're here to recognize today are walking examples of those values. The first value we recognize that we all share as members of this brave organization is honor. A recognition of doing the right thing, a recognition that we represent so much more than ourselves when we don the uniform and we serve this community. The men and women we're recognizing today do that. They represent us well. They represent you well. They represent those who made the ultimate sacrifice extraordinarily well. We recognize integrity is a shared value. The men and women we're here to recognize today, again, are examples of that. We talk about our commitment to service, even in the face of danger, and the men and women we're recognizing here today certainly exemplify that. Courage is one of those shared values that hadn't been celebrated in the past, but it was clearly evident in looking at the work that our officers do, and certainly those we're here to recognize today. Courage to place oneself in harm's way, putting oneself between threats to the safety of this community and at great personal peril. But courage also means the moral courage to do the right thing, to have integrity, even when it may not be the popular thing. We also retain respect as a core value. And again, the men and women here display that respect. You're going to hear some amazing stories of how the men and women of this organization treat the public, treat one another with the ultimate respect. And then a new core value that really arose from the conversations and feedback from the men and women of this organization is compassion. We recognize that compassion is at the very heart of service, and service is at the very heart of what law enforcement officers, what police officers exist to do. So again, to those we're about to recognize, I thank you for your service. For friends and family here to celebrate with us, again, I thank you for attending. This is a day of celebration.
And now we're going to get on with the program as far as the presentation of the awards. First, we're going to have the Recognition of Excellence Award. Assistant District Attorney Ann Steiner. On August the 21st, 2015, Assistant District Attorney Ann Steiner witnessed two male juveniles running through backyards carrying a laptop in Zone 4. ADA Steiner began to follow the actors in her vehicle while notifying the 911 operators of the actors' location. It was her quick thinking and training with the District Attorney's Office that made an apprehension and positive identification of the burglary suspects. It is to be noted that the apprehension not only recovered the stolen property, a stolen firearm was also recovered. For her brave actions, Assistant District Attorney Ann Steiner is presented the Recognition of Excellence Award. Next, we have Security Officer Dante Miller. Due to multiple burglaries in Zone 1, Pittsburgh Bureau of Police officers reached out to Security Officer Dante Miller, who was given information and a photograph of a wanted burglary suspect. Miller recognized the actor who had visited a relative in the Presley Senior high-rise building and agreed to contact police if the suspect returned. On October the 9th, 2015, he contacted the zone and informed officers that the suspect had just entered the building. Once officers had surrounded the building, Security Officer Miller utilized the camera system in the building and recognized the actor entering an apartment on the 3rd floor. Officers knocked on the apartment and apprehended the suspect. Without the assistance of Security Officer Miller, the capture of the suspect would not have occurred. Security Officer Miller, by getting to know his tenants and visitors and his ability of using the building camera system, helped the police capture 6 outstanding warrants. For his actions, Security Officer Dante Miller is presented the Recognition of Excellence Award. Thank you. DEA Investigative Assistant Ginger Brown and U.S. Deputy Marshal Sean Kiley. In June 2014, detectives from the Strategic Investigations Unit, along with the Drug Enforcement Agency and Pennsylvania Attorney General's Office, had concluded a Title III investigation of subject Price Montgomery. The investigation targeted Montgomery and others who were operating a large-scale heroin distribution operation in the Pittsburgh area. At the conclusion of this investigation, Montgomery, along with others, were indicted and arrested for distribution of more than 1 kilogram of cocaine and heroin, Upon his arrest, Montgomery was given the opportunity for bail and was released from custody pending trial. On August the 22nd, 2014, subject Tina Crawford, who was also indicted and arrested in this investigation, was scheduled to meet with detectives, agents, and U.S. Attorney's Office as a cooperative defendant. Crawford was leaving her home in the Hill District when she was murdered by unknown assailants. Price Montgomery fled Pittsburgh and became a fugitive in the initial drug case, and was considered a significant person of interest. In January 2015, Detective Matthew Truesdale, U.S. Deputy Marshal Sean Kiley, and DEA Investigative Assistant Ginger Brown took initiative and began research of subject Montgomery's cellular phone. A court order was obtained, and cell site locator in Montgomery was located in Ghana, Ohio. Efforts were coordinated with the U.S. Marshal's Office in Columbus, Ohio, and Montgomery was apprehended. Due to Detective Truesdale, Deputy Marshal Sean Kiley, and Investigative Assistant Ginger Brown's efforts, Price Montgomery, a dangerous offender, has been apprehended and will return to Pittsburgh to face trial for the initial drug charges and further investigation into the murder of Tina Crawford. For their actions, Deputy Marshal Kiley and Investigative Assistant Brown are presented the Recognition of Excellence Award. Now we move to a category that is the first ever category in the Bureau's history for Police Outstanding Volunteer Service Award. Officer Christine Luffy. Officer Christine Luffy volunteers a significant amount of her time to raise awareness and support for local animal care charities. For the past 18 years, Officer Luffy has been the organizer and main supporter of the Biscuit Bingo event, specifically designed to raise awareness and financial support for local animal shelters. This year's event, held February the 22nd, 2016, raised more than $33,000 to support the selected charities. Officer Luffy's volunteer service reflects positively on herself, on the officers at Zone 3, and on the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police. For her selfless dedication to the protection of animals and support of the organizations that care for them, Officer Christine Luffy is being presented the Police Officer Volunteer Service Award. Now the category Bureau Officer of the Month for the year 2015. First up is Officer Michael Lafferty. Zone 2, Officer Michael Lafferty has continually distinguished himself among his peers and has specifically performed at a high level during the month of January 2015. Officer Lafferty possesses all the qualities necessary for urban policing in high-needs, active environments. Officer Lafferty is street smart, highly motivated, tactically minded, compassionate, and accessible. Making 6 arrests during the month of January, attending community meetings, and building mutual trust with neighborhood residents, he has also built relationships with community and religious leaders within Zone 2. For his efforts, Officer Michael Lafferty is presented the Officer of the Month Award for January 2015. Officer Aaron Obsenica. Officer Obsenica distinguished himself through his hard work, professionalism, and dedication to his fellow officers and citizens. He has 5 arrests during the month of February. These arrests range from 2 ShotSpotter activations resulting in the recovery of stolen firearms, heroin, and a large amount of cash, and one where there came upon a crash scene where the driver was the shooter. There were 2 domestic violence situations, one resulting in arresting a known actor with active warrants and a firearm, the other where a victim had been stabbed, left in critical condition, and his attacker was arrested. Officer Obsenica and his partner, while conducting surveillance, observed a male with a firearm in his vehicle. The actor fled and was captured, recovering a stolen firearm, heroin, and cash. For his efforts, Officer Aaron Obsenica is presented the Officer of the Month Award for February 2015. Officer Gino Maciasi. Sorry, Gino. During the month of 2015, he's not present, but we're still going to read the notice here. During the month of March 2015, Officer Gino Maciosi distinguished himself with his fellow officers through his hard work and dedication to residents of Zone 5. Officer Maciosi, in 2 separate incidents, made arrests by conducting on-scene interviews, by separating the involved parties, and questioning each individual to learn the exact facts. In a car rollover near the Pittsburgh Zoo, an arrest was made for DUI and false reports. In a domestic violence incident, a male actor was arrested after the facts were known. In an armed carjacking case with the victim's information, he began his investigation and identified the actors and located photographs of the actors on Facebook. This led to warrants for each actor. Officer Maciosi then prepared a search warrant for the residence of the actors, which, with the help of the SWAT and Zone 5 officers, led to the carjacker's arrest and the removal of a firearm. For his actions, Officer Gino Maciosi is presented the Officer of the Month Award for March 2015. Next, we have Officer Robert Smolinski, who is also not present, but in his duties as a desk officer at Zone 5, Officer Smolinski approaches the public with a positive attitude and shows his willingness to serve the community. Persons calling or visiting Zone 5 are treated as important and respected. This presents a positive reflection of the Bureau of Police. Officer Smolinski maintains a professional demeanor while engaging with members of the public and is able to diffuse difficult situations. Other zone personnel respect him and his willingness to assist other officers in specific tasks and his service to the public. For his efforts, Officer Robert Smolinski is presented the Officer of the Month Award for April 2015. Officers Lance Hoyson, Daniel Zeltner, I have Lance on here twice, Brendan Flicker, and Andrew Miller. During the month of June 2015, Zone 5 officers Andrew Miller, Daniel Zeltner, Lance Hoyson, and Brendan Flicker distinguished themselves through their outstanding and consistent drug and firearms investigations. Arrest for illegal firearms, felony drug charges including confiscation of crack cocaine, cash, multiple cell phones and digital scales, a buy-bust operation covering 33 stamp bags of heroin, as well as marijuana, occurred during the first week of June. Capture of a known drug dealer, and the recovery of several bundles of heroin and cash also occurred during the first week of the month. A known warrant suspect who had shot a victim and another outstanding warrant for a home invasion robbery where another person was shot was apprehended by these officers. And subsequently, a firearm was recovered with a VUFA charge. These officers also detained a known individual who exhibited the actions of someone carrying a firearm. He was charged with carrying a firearm without a license. For their actions, Officers Hoyson, Zeltner, Flicker, and Miller are presented the Officer of the Month Award for June 2015. Next up, we have Officer Andrew Jones, who is not present, but we will make sure he gets his honor. Zone 1 Officer Andrew Jones is a hard worker and displays an exceptional attitude when interacting with the community and his fellow officers. His 911 calls for service during May 2015 are examples of these strengths. During a Presley Ridge school incident, a student had assaulted several staff members and had been restrained. The student would not respond to officers' questioning and was combative and uncooperative. Officer Jones was able to engage that student, handcuff and take the student to the patrol car in a peaceful manner. A young runaway girl entered the zone crying one day about being mistreated by her stepmother. Officer Jones spoke with the girl, calming her down and discussed her reasons for running away. Officer Jones was able to return her to her home and reunite her with her parents. Officer Jones completely embraces community policing and building relationships within the community. His actions toward the public and assisting fellow officers show his high standard of professionalism. For his actions, Officer Andrew Jones is presented the Officer of the Month Award for May 2015. Detectives Justin Simone, Charles Higgins, and Jedediah Pollock. Their commitment to solving a death that involved going over phone records, interviewing medical personnel, and securing a search warrant for a residence where 430 bags of heroin, 2 firearms, and a large amount of cash were discovered, are just one of many reasons why they are receiving this award. The use of confidential informants and an undercover purchase of heroin led to the arrest of 3 actors who were indicted and charged in federal court. Charges were conspiring to distribute and to distribute heroin causing a death and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. This overdose case is one of the first to be charged in Pittsburgh, holding drug dealers responsible for the death of an individual. These detectives have opened the door for more overdose deaths to be prosecuted in federal courts. For their actions, Detectives Simone, Higgins, and Pollock are presented the Officer of the Month Award for July 2015. Let's applaud them. Officer Igor Boyko. During the month of August 2015, Igor Boyko of Zone 4 has professionally handled calls for service and has shown a strong desire to proactively patrol and respond as backup for his fellow officers. He was instrumental in several felony arrests. Officer Boyko made an aggravated assault arrest for a stabbing. He pursued a fleeing actor with a firearm and took him into custody. He responded to a burglary in progress with partner Officer Berberich. 2 juvenile actors were apprehended. The stolen property was recovered, as was the firearm from one of the juveniles. Officer Boyko, along with his partner, reported to a suspicious loitering complaint at city steps. This being an area of recent shootings and a homicide, he devised a plan to drop his partner at the top of the steps while he awaited at the bottom. One of 2 suspects was arrested and 2 firearms were seized as evidence, one of which was stolen. For his actions, Officer Igor Boyko is presented the Officer of the Month Award for August 2015. Officer Asia Pruden and Sergeant Louis Caparelli. Zone 1 Sergeant Louis Caparelli was dispatched to where a 2-year-old child had been shot in the chest. Sergeant Caparelli arrived at the scene in minutes and was taken to the 3rd floor of an apartment complex where the young victim was located. He took the child downstairs and outside and began CPR. Other officers were on the scene. Within seconds, Sergeant Caparelli noticed the arrival of a Pittsburgh paramedic truck. He picked up the child and took him to the ambulance for treatment, with Officer Asia Pruden following to the truck. She also began assisting with CPR. The child was taken to Allegheny General Hospital, where he was pronounced deceased. Sergeant Caparelli's actions during this incident were described by community onlookers as heroic. Officer Asia Pruden's assistance with CPR during this emotionally charged event was praised by fellow officers on the scene. They performed their duties in an exemplary manner. For their efforts, Officer Pruden and Sergeant Caparelli are presented the Officer of the Month Award for September 2015. Detectives Joseph Brown and Andrew Robinson. During the month of October 2015, Detectives Joseph Brown and Detective Andrew Robinson exemplified dedication and professionalism at Zone 3. These 2 detectives were able to locate and apprehend several violent warrant suspects, 3 with active homicide warrants, as well as a warrant suspect for a burglary, where 5 firearms were stolen. The same suspect was also a suspect in several other burglaries in Zone 3. In addition, 4 narcotics arrests were completed during the Carrick Blitz, and 12 non-traffic citations were issued during the Southside Saturation Detail in October. For their efforts, Detectives Brown and Robinson are presented the Officer of the Month Award for October 2015. Officer Christine Luffy, we've already heard a lot about. Officer Christine Luffy serves at Zone 3 as the Community Resource Officer. Officer Luffy attends various community block meetings wherein the community leaders look forward to her attendance and input on crime reports. She was also instrumental in the Carrick Blitz. During the month of November, she coordinated the Get Stuffed with Love program, where free Thanksgiving meals were delivered to citizens in need throughout the city. She is a visible individual in Zone 3 and is recognized by citizens by her strong partnerships and lasting bonds. For her efforts, Officer Christine Luffy is presented the Officer of the Month Award for November 2015. Next up, we have Officer Michael Pittock, who is not present. Officer Pittock was tasked with the massive and monumental investigation into outstanding warrants that were, in some cases, more than 365 days old or older, where the due diligence required by Rule 600 and the PA Rules of Criminal Procedure had not been completed. His efforts determined if the warrants were salvageable or had to be withdrawn. His research, numerous emails, and meetings with the accreditation unit supervisors, district attorneys, and magistrates led to the significant reduction of outstanding warrants. His work has also helped keep officers' attention on this important issue and on the current list of newer warrants where due diligence is required to keep them valid. For his efforts, Officer Michael Pittock is presented the Officer of the Month Award for December 2015. Now in the category Bureau Officer of the Year 2014. This award goes to Officer Daniel Hartung. He is a very proactive officer. He routinely patrols the high crime areas in Zone 1 and provides backup to fellow officers without hesitation. Officer Hartung is one of the most productive officers on the night turn shift, and he deserves recognition for his performance. During 2014, Officer Hartung prevented a catastrophic event when an armed suspect had threatened to shoot at public safety officers and blow up his house to cause further injury to the officers. Holding a knife, the actor exited his house and ran toward officers. Officer Hartung deployed less lethal shock rounds, and the actor dropped the knife and was safely taken into custody. Officer Hartung has identified actors in neighborhood shootings during traffic stops and by identifying vehicles involved in shootings. He has also located and assisted in the apprehension of an actor who had recently committed burglary and aggravated assault in an area where shots were fired. For his outstanding efforts, Officer Daniel Hartung is presented the Officer of the Year Award 2014. The Purple Heart Award is given to Sergeant Colleen Bristow. On September the 15th, 2010, Officer Colleen Bristow and other officers responded to a robbery in progress on Brighton Road. Officer Bristow was one of the first officers on the scene, and observed 3 suspects exit a side door and flee down Riverside Road. Officer Bristow pursued one of the suspects as he ran to a getaway vehicle while other officers pursued the other suspects. The suspect ignored her commands to stop and climbed into the vehicle. Despite the fact that the suspect had just committed an armed robbery and that the suspect was substantially larger than Officer Bristow, she still attempted to take him into custody by removing him from the van. However, the suspect resisted and put the vehicle in reverse, causing Officer Bristow to be thrown to the ground. The suspect wrecked into a dumpster and then drove at Officer Bristow as she lay on the ground after being seriously injured. Officers came to her aid and ultimately took the suspect into custody. Officer Bristow sustained serious injuries, which prevented her from returning to work until 2014. Officer Bristow has returned to work after sustaining her serious injuries and continues to excel in her career as a newly promoted sergeant, and contributes to the goals of the Bureau of Police and service to the residents in the city of Pittsburgh. For her efforts and sacrifice, Officer Bristow is being presented with the Purple Heart. Now for the Recognition of Excellence Award, Officer of the Year, and Medal of Valor. The Medal of Valor is the highest honor presented to the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and is awarded only under the most extraordinary of circumstances. It is awarded to members who distinguish themselves by performing an act of exceptional courage and bravery above and beyond the call of duty. This conduct occurs in immediate life-threatening perils that place the members at extreme risk without regard for his or her personal safety and in the interest of others. This act demonstrates professional judgment that does not jeopardize the mission. And this honor goes to Allegheny Sheriff's Deputy Neil Hall, Allegheny County Sheriff Sergeant Kevin Folds, Detective David Honig, Detective William Freiberg, Port Authority Officer Joseph Del Sol, Sergeant Anthony Palermo, and Sergeant James Vogel. At approximately 10:06 Monday, June the 22nd, 2015, multiple calls started to come in reporting that this was an active shooter incident in the Allentown neighborhood of Pittsburgh. The incident began with the suspect firing shots from a semi-automatic rifle at and near a daycare center. The suspect then moved around the neighborhood where he shot a male taxi driver. He fired shots at and into occupied houses and vehicles, and then carjacked a vehicle. At the reports, as they were coming in and being dispatched, all Zone 3 responded to the area seeking the sound of the gunfire. After the suspect stole the vehicle, he went mobile, firing shots at the responding police. Allegheny Sheriff's Deputy Neil Hall was one of the first responding officers on the scene. The suspect struck the deputy's vehicle, causing it to become involved in a traffic collision. The suspect then continued to flee apprehension, and Allegheny Sheriff Sergeant Kevin Folds immediately took up pursuit, even while under fire, and continued to pursue through the Carrick neighborhood, making his way down Brownsville Road, turning down Nobles Lane, and entering heavy traffic on Sawmill Run. During the heavy traffic, the actor was stopped near the intersection of Bousman and Sawmill Run. This created an environment for the actor in which he could have caused harm to the other drivers on Sawmill Run and pedestrians and businesses in the area. Sergeant Anthony Palermo, Detective William Freiberg, Detective David Honig, Sergeant James Vogel, and Port Authority Police Officer Joseph Del Sol responded to the area where the suspect was stopped in traffic. Without regard for their personal safety, these officers engaged the actor to restore public safety. When faced with gunfire, they were forced to return fire to stop the actor for their own safety and to prevent the actor from further endangering the public. Sergeant Vogel, Officer Del Sol put their own lives at risk to advance upon the actor's vehicle while firing at the actor. They continued firing until the threat to the public had been stopped. For these actions, Deputy Hall has presented the Recognition of Excellence Award. The actions of Sergeant Kevin Folds, Sergeant Palermo, Detective Freiberg, Detective Honig, Sergeant Vogel, and Officer Del Sol demonstrated extraordinary bravery without regard for their own personal safety, and in a manner that prevented further injury and saved lives. For their actions, they are awarded the Medal of Valor. Additionally, Sergeant Vogel, Sergeant Palermo, Detective Freiberg, and Detective Honig are being recognized as the Bureau of Police Officers of the Year for 2015. This concludes our awards ceremony. There is an opportunity, now that we have gone through the awards, for anyone who is interested in having photographs taken with the mayor and the other dignitaries here to come on up with the honorees, their families and friends. And at this point, I'd like to say to all of the officers as well, a heartfelt thank you for your service. You guys make my job easy.